2023 budgets of the Criminal Justice and Judiciary, Health and Human Services, and Housing Committees. I am proud of Council's efforts this year to continue of legislation supporting pathways out of poverty, protecting tenants' rights, and ensuring access to reproductive health care. Although these times have been difficult, I'm proud of the work each of these departments we will hear from tonight have done to continue supporting our city employees and, of course, our residents. Whether it is answering the call to pass common sense gun reform, deploying dollars to keep our residents safely housed, or creating a housing bond strategy to continue to address our housing crisis. I am proud of the work being accomplished each day. I truly believe that by reinvesting in our community, our people, and our community institutions, we can begin to move the needle towards a city that supports each and every one of our citizens. Tonight, we will hear presentations from the City Attorney's Office, the Franklin County Municipal Court Judges, and the Franklin County Municipal Court Clerk's Office, as well as the city's Departments of Development and Columbus Public Health. Each department will present an overview of their 2023 budget and take questions. Following presentations and Q&A, members of the public will have an opportunity to provide testimony. We will now begin with the City Attorney's Office, starting with a presentation. What is wrong with me today? Starting with a presentation from Deputy Chief of Staff, Brian Shin.
Thank you, Chair Favor. I am honored for the opportunity to present the budget request for City Attorney Zach Klein. I have with me today Meredith Tucker, who is our Chief of Staff, Christy Power, who is our Fiscal Manager, and Melanie Tobias, who is Deputy Chief of Staff for Prosecution. As prescribed by the Columbus City Charter, the City Attorney is the legal advisor of an attorney and counsel for the city, and for all officers, departments thereof, in matters relating to their official duties. The City Attorney also serves as the prosecuting attorney of the municipal court and shall prosecute or defend for and in behalf of the city all complaints, suits, and controversies in which the city is a party. City Attorney Klein was first elected in November 2017 and was re-elected to another 4-year term in November 2021. He has 3 years remaining on his current term. Our office is divided into 2 divisions for the purposes of the budget. The City Attorney Division, which is funded mostly from the general fund, and the Real Estate Division, which is funded from both the general fund and from the Land Acquisition Fund. However, in terms of day-to-day operations, the office is divided into 2 divisions based upon our 2 separate office locations: the Civil Division at 77 North Front Street and the Prosecution Division at 375 South High Street. Within these 2 office locations, the office is composed of a total of 9 legal sections and our administration section. We have a total of 179 employees as of December 2022, which includes 70 attorneys, 74 full-time administrative and support staff, and 35 part-time support staff. The legal sections include the General Counsel section, which serves as primary legal counsel to city officials on issues relating to city services, legislation, contracts, zoning, and other vital issues associated with the day-to-day operations of city government. There are currently 6 attorneys in the General Counsel section, and our 2023 budget request includes an additional 7th attorney paid for within our budget target. The litigation section defends the city and its employees in all types of civil litigation in both state and federal courts. There are currently 9 attorney positions in the litigation section. 2 of our staff were just elected to the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, so we will be filling those vacancies to ensure that the city continues to receive the highest level of representation. Our labor and employment section is responsible for handling all labor and employment-related litigation involving the city and provides legal advice to city officials and managers on labor and employment matters involving all city employees and the 6 collective bargaining agreements. Currently, there are 4 attorney positions in the Labor and Employment section. Our Police Legal Advisor section provides comprehensive legal advice to the Columbus Division of Police for a wide range of legal issues that impact city police officers. Attorneys in this section deliver around-the-clock, real-time advice to police personnel, as they are on call 24/7. In addition, this section provides legal training to Division of Police recruits and to current officers. We have 2 attorneys in the Police Legal Advisor section. The Solicitor General section aims to protect the legal rights of Columbus residents through proactive litigation and promoting important public policy changes. Through the work of this section, the city has filed, joined, or supported several lawsuits aimed at protecting workers' rights, healthcare access, civil rights, and safeguarding taxpayer dollars. They also oversee complex appellate litigation in state and federal courts. There are 2 attorneys in the General Counsel section. The Real Estate Division is responsible for the acquisition of all real property interests needed by city departments, the provision of legal assistance with regard to all real estate matters, including the sale and leasing of property, utility easements, right-of-way dedications, and matters related to real estate property taxes. The Real Estate Division also provides legal and negotiating advice for a number of major transactions. Currently, there are 3 attorneys in the Real Estate Division. The Claims Division investigates pre-litigation tort claims against the city that exceed the sum of $2,500. The Claims Division also manages collection of delinquent debts owed to the city after city departments have exhausted remedies, with the Income Tax Division of the Auditor's Office being our primary client. There are 3 attorneys in the Claims Division. The Zone Initiative Division focuses on eliminating public nuisances that blight neighborhoods, whether it is abandoned and deteriorating houses, houses with drug activity, street prostitution, excessive noise, or trash and debris. This unit seeks to eliminate these problems. The attorneys assigned to this unit spend significant time out in the community and use the court system to help citizens and city government work together to improve the quality of life in Columbus's neighborhoods. The unit files complaints for injunctive relief in the Environmental Division of the Franklin County Municipal Court, seeking equitable solutions to persistent problems. There are 9 attorneys in the Zone Initiative section currently. The Prosecution Division is responsible for prosecution of misdemeanor offenses on behalf of the city and the state of Ohio in Franklin County Municipal Court. From case initiation in the Prosecution Resources Unit to defense of successful prosecutions in the Appellate Unit, prosecution provides a wide array of services attendant to the resolution of criminal allegations and complaints. Within the Prosecution Division are the specialized units of domestic violence and stalking, which handles the most involved high-risk domestic violence cases. There are also trauma-informed, culturally competent in understanding the effects of domestic violence. There are currently a total of 31 attorney positions in the Prosecution Division, which includes 6 in the DV unit and 2 in the Appellate Unit. Some brief highlights of our work in 2022 include the litigation section has opened 46 new cases and closed 58 cases. There are currently 76 active litigation cases with plaintiffs seeking a combined total of $23.4 million in damages from the city. The Labor and Employment section so far has opened 100 new cases and closed 69 cases this year. They currently have 57 active cases. The Claims Division has filed 873 new cases so far this year to recover delinquent income tax for the city. Our Zone Initiative Division filed 27 new civil nuisance cases related to criminal activity on premises, 548 new civil nuisance cases related to code violations, 58 new criminal filings, and 15 new objections for hotel and liquor permit holders. Prosecution has handled approximately 35,000 new misdemeanor case filings, including over 5,399 crimes of violence. There are approximately 800 matters handled by the Prosecution Resources Unit, which has included 26 mediations, which we facilitate in an effort to assist community members resolve conflicts without having the parties enter into the criminal justice system. The appellate unit handled 17 appeals in the 10th District Court of Appeals. One of City Attorney Klein's top priorities is to make Columbus's criminal justice system more equitable, efficient, and impactful. Deputy Chiefs of Staff for Prosecution Melanie Tobias Hunter is here and available to answer any questions you might have about City Attorney Klein's policy initiatives related to prosecution and our office's criminal justice reform efforts. Our 2023 budget request includes 3 expansion requests. The first is the owner-occupied initiative for $250,000. The owner-occupied initiative is a grant program administered by the Columbus City Attorney's Office in partnership with home repair vendor NextGen. The mission of this program is to increase safety in neighborhoods through the reduction of blighted properties. It assists low-income homeowners who have received code enforcement citations within the City of Columbus that have advanced to litigation in the Franklin County Environmental Court. It connects homeowners with existing home repairs resources and also provides home repair services where existing resources are not available. The second of our expansion requests is the SASA program for $191,762. SASA is the Special United States Assistant Attorney Program, which allows 2 of our prosecution staff to work in collaboration with the U.S. Attorney's Office on gun violence cases. The staff members will appear in federal court on behalf of the United States government, but will maintain direct employment by our office. A SASA must complete a Department of Justice background check. The SASA will prosecute federal offenses that take place in the City of Columbus with a focus on gun crimes. The SASA will work full-time on a federal case docket and must follow United States Attorney Office policies and guidelines. The requested additional funds will allow us to hire 2 more attorneys to handle the work of the 2 staff members who will be participating in the SASA program. Our final expansion request is the salary study for $1.201570. In December 2021, we approached citywide human resources compensation team regarding a salary study for our MCP employees. At our request, they conducted a salary market study to compare the average salary of our employees in their respective classifications to employees in comparable positions or classifications in 7 peer jurisdictions chosen by Citywide Human Resources. In June 2022, they provided us with the salary market study results. For all of our MCP classifications, for which there was a 70% more or more match in duties, the results of the salary market study indicated that their average salary was less than the market rate, and the range was from anywhere from 6% up to 23.3% less than the market rate, depending upon the classification. Based upon the salary market study, we are requesting additional funding from the general fund and the land acquisition fund to compensate our MCP staff more equitably and in line with the market. The additional funds will also help us to be better able to retain our existing staff and to recruit high-quality candidates for vacancies. We are happy to answer any questions that you have, Chair Favor.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Shin. I do have a few questions for you. So over the past several years, we've had, unfortunately, some high-profile settlements that have come before this legislative body, and you did throw out some active litigation with some numbers that are associated with it. Do we know the realm of what we can anticipate each year, or does that fluctuate?
That's a really good question, Chair Favor. Unfortunately, it fluctuates a lot from year to year. For the public's knowledge, we work closely with the Department of Finance and Management to make sure that funds are set aside for settlements, but it can vary greatly year to year. Sorry for not having a better answer.
And is an amount, a loose amount carved out in the budget for you all on an annual basis?
It's in finances budget. It's Chair Favor, that amount is in the budget of the Department of Finance and Management.
And I will likely need someone's assistance with the actual designated term for this. But when officers confiscate certain items through criminal investigations, and those funds or resources can be utilized by municipalities to purchase products either for the Department of Public Safety. What is the word I am looking for? Forfeiture.
Yeah.
Can the forfeiture fund be used to pay settlements? I've asked this question in the past. Do we know?
I apologize. We will gladly
put a
get
pin
back
in
to
it.
you on that. I do not know.
Let's
off
put
the
a
top
pin
of
in
my-
it. It's something that comes up quite a bit
Sure.
for us at council, especially when we're talking about individuals who have lost their lives due to misconduct or some other
Absolutely.
purpose.
Yeah, we will get back to you on that. Sorry about that.
With that being said, recognizing the increase in gun crimes in Columbus, coupled with the continuous relaxation of state gun laws, can you all talk more about that partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office to focus on the prosecution of gun crimes? And I'm also thinking about the very reality that just this past Monday, we passed some common sense gun legislation. And so do we anticipate those two individuals working in tandem with the U.S. Attorney's Office?
I'm going to have Meredith help with that answer.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Favor. Good evening. Yes, I think it's important to note that we have had a longstanding relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office. So the South Sorrel is not entirely new to our office, but the change in this year's budget allows for 2 additional full-time personnel who are still working within the City Attorney's Office, but day in and day out are inside of the U.S. Attorney's Office, really increasing that collaboration between the law enforcement agencies, which we're really enthused to see how that can increase our progress on those violent gun cases.
Turned on. Thinking about the expansion request that you all made for the salary study, was that the 1.9 to actually pay for the study or to pay for the increase in the salaries?
That would be Chair Favor to pay for the increase in salaries.
Okay. I know that as an entire city, we are in the midst of conducting a salary study across all departments, given the state of our country and the cost of everything going up. And so we do recognize that in order to continue to attract the best of the best to work on behalf of our residents, that we have to be able to compete.
Yes, thank you very much for that.
For your department, what are the most important outcomes as it relates to the work that you do around racial equity?
Thank you, Chair Favor. Our office's mission is to seek fairness and justice for all members of the community, especially as it relates to our prosecution division, where the City Attorney's Office strives to hold violent offenders accountable and protect public safety, while simultaneously working with nonviolent offenders to identify the root cause of their criminal behavior and help provide remedies and solutions, particularly if the criminal behavior is rooted in socioeconomic factors like lack of access to community resources such as food or housing. many of which are, of course, driven by historical inequities. Over the last few years, we've worked to create and expand multiple formalized diversion programs for nonviolent offenders that provide individual assessments of individuals who are defendants to connect them with counseling, education resources, and other critical resources while allowing for their criminal charge to ultimately be dismissed or even possibly sealed. Effective prosecution and meaningful justice response and access to those resources for survivors of domestic violence are also a main priority for our team. We know historically that violence disproportionately impacts women, specifically women of color. Approximately 4,000 domestic violence cases are prosecuted in municipal court each year, and 48% of those victims are Black women. Our prosecution division is staffed with specially trained, trauma-informed, culturally responsive domestic violence prosecutors and victim advocates who serve the public every day. In the last few years, our office was also integral in securing a 3-year, nearly $1 million Office on Violence Against Women Award, or VAWA, to improve the overall justice system's response to domestic violence while reducing barriers to support resources for survivors. Through this grant, we are working with law enforcement, with jail operations, 911, the courts, prosecution, probation, and victim service organizations to implement that evidence-based blueprint for safety, the interagency response to domestic violence model in Franklin County.
Thank you for that information. And I should have prefaced that question with an opening statement. In 2020, the City of Columbus, as well as Franklin County, declared racism to be a public health crisis. This legislative body has been intentional about unpacking what that actually means, just outside of a few words. And it beyond talking about big subject matters like housing and criminal justice overall, it's also looking at our departments and how we are providing services for residents in our community in an equitable way. And that also includes our employees. And so I appreciate that overview of the City Attorney's Office perspective on this subject matter, and then what you're doing to address it as well. That is all the questions that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Favor.
Next, we will move on to our municipal court. Judge Eileen Paley, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Councilmember Favor. My name is Judge Eileen Paley, and I'm the Franklin County Municipal Court Finance Committee Chair. And with me this evening is John Davenport. There we go. It's John Davenport, our Deputy Court Administrator, and beside me, Tanika Jackson, our Finance Director. Thank you for this opportunity to address the court's 2023 operating budget. The city has a stellar finance department, and we appreciate their support and guidance throughout this very important process. There was a special thank you to Director Owens, Deputy Director Long, and Azad Farzan, the court's budget management specialist. And the court's 2023 budget, as recommended, is $26,258,601, which is appropriate to meet our 2023 operating expenses. The court is extremely appreciative of the consideration given by the city council and the finance department. The court's general fund budget request includes $490,000 to offset a portion of the costs which are associated with the court's specialized dockets, which include Link, Catch, Mavs, Hart, and the drug court. These dockets help the court provide wraparound care so that the underlying issues that contribute to participants' criminal behavior may be successfully resolved. The specialized dockets have reduced the overall number of jail nights, improved community safety through lower recidivism rates, reunified families, and have returned many participants to a productive life, contributing to the community in a positive way. $125,000 to support the court's work release program. This is an alternative sentencing option in lieu of a mandatory jail sentence, which allows the individual to maintain his or her employment while serving his or her sentence. $284,000 is committed to providing language services to the court and all parties. These monies are dedicated to multiple contracts with outside vendors that provide foreign language and American Sign Language interpreters. Foreign language interpretation is a vital part of the global community that is the City of Columbus. And with thanks to the city, we are able to rise to the challenge of providing service to every litigant who appears in our court. $807,000 will provide essential contract services for evening, weekend, and holiday building security. This contract, in conjunction with the court's own security personnel, allows the public to have access to the courthouse in the clerk's office 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. $111,000 to support the addition of a staff attorney to aid the environmental court in the court's general division. City departments have doubled their efforts to remedy neighborhood nuisance and prosecute code violations, and this has substantially increased the caseload for the environmental division of the court. This approved request will greatly assist with the timely management of the growing environmental court civil docket. $625,000 was granted to support the addition of 6 pretrial probation officers that will be located at the new jail facility for a 24/7 service and which will be integrated into the book-in process. The addition and location of these staff will assist to keep the total jail population down. Everyone who arrives at the jail for processing will be interviewed and screened by these officers for a potential pretrial release with possible supervision conditions and community safety provisions in place. The funding also supports the addition of 1 community sanctions probation officer that will assist with the sentencing alternatives like non-reporting supervision, restitution programming, and community service. The court has also been a recipient of multiple grant awards which demonstrate our commitment to working for and bettering the lives of our neighbors in the community. Franklin County has awarded grants that provide peer support mentors to 2 of our court specialized dockets, domestic violence support for the LGBTQI community, 2 victims assistance to support victims of crime while the offender is on probation, and alternative sentencing programs for probationers. The state of Ohio has provided grant awards to support advocacy for the victims of domestic violence, staffing their probation electronic monitoring department, and improving the pretrial services. The court has received multiple awards from the U.S. Bureau of Justice Assistance. Each award is a term of 3 to 4 years and has a cumulative total of $1,778,117. 1 grant focuses on extending and expanding the court's MARCH program. MARCH stands for Medical Assisted Treatment, Assessment, Referrals, Collaboration, and Hope. The MARCH program provides direct on-site or virtual linkage to behavioral, medical, employment, treatment, and community resources. A second grant provides additional peer mentors and service to the Heart, Recovery Courts, and MAVs specialized dockets, and the most recently awarded grant focuses on the LINK specialized docket, which is dedicated to participants with mental health diagnoses. The court is continuing to use funds awarded by the State Justice Institute that supports a contract for social worker dedicated to the court's Self-Help Resource Center. The Self-Help Center has been vital to pro se litigants seeking information and services regarding eviction proceedings. The Self-Help Resource Center also extends its services to the Opportunity Port program, which assists Franklin County residents with sealing of criminal records that may be holding them back from life-improving opportunities. The court employs restorative and therapeutic justice by offering programming and intervention responses that are proven to be effective tools to reduce and prevent recidivism. The court has proactively engaged and received favorable responses and continued collaboration with our other governmental partners, the City Council, Mayor, the City Attorney, Klein, Common Police Court, the county commissioners, and the sheriff. This partnership and sharing of resources is essential towards long-term program sustainability and success and will lead to a greater program efficiencies, cost-saving measures, and increased resources, all of which affect the court's ability to positive problem solving. The Franklin County Municipal Court remains the largest and the busiest municipal court in Ohio. We continually strive to improve our services to every litigant who appear in this court and to be wise and efficient stewards of taxpayers' resources. We appreciate the financial support that we receive in these difficult economic times and hope that this continued support is a reflection of your trust in the way we conduct our operations and expend taxpayer dollars. Chairperson Favor, thank you for your support and this opportunity. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have this evening.
Thank you so much, Judge Paley. So just a few questions here. You highlighted the court's specialized dockets. For our listening audience, can you describe or talk about those specialized dockets? What are they? And if, anyone can get access to them?
Well, the specialized dockets are kind of a diversion program for people that are involved in the justice system. So we have MAVS, which is a veterans program, because veterans have specialized needs and they have specialized programs. We have mental health specialized docket, which has grown substantially with the needs of the mental health in our community. We have 2 drug courts, one's for opiates and one's for non-opiates. We have the catch court, which deals with human trafficking victims. And we consider the environmental court a specialized docket also. But I would like to note that you do not have to be involved in the justice system, in other words, charged with a crime, to take the opportunity of the resources at the courthouse, such as the March program that has been funded by the city and our self-help clinic. Our March program is a full resource center at the courthouse that can provide anything from helping you to find a job, mental health, physical health issues, housing. We have right now, I think, over 28 partners that are helping us resource people in the community. And it's becoming a very successful center thanks to the help of City Council.
Thank you, Judge. And that kind of leads me to my next question as we're talking about diversion programs and how we recognize the inequities throughout our systems in this country. You mentioned sentence alternatives, and just within the parameters of the law, do we know, and I know that there's a lot of discretion that judges have, how often sentence alternatives will be offered to folks?
I mean, thanks to our city attorney's office and the court being both progressive, probably for the first time in the history of Columbus, I would say, and I could be corrected by the city attorney if I'm wrong, that probably every person that walks into the courthouse that is worthy of assistance is being assisted.
Wonderful.
If they're repeat offenders or violent offenders, those are people that we can still help, obviously, because there's sometimes reasons for that, like mental health. But we're not trying to give anybody a record that will prohibit them from finding housing or a job. In fact, we go out of our way to prevent that. And then if it does happen, we go out of our way to fix it. Yeah. In fact, last night, the members of the self-help clinic and I think about 6 of our judges received a public service, community service award from the Milo Grogan community for their work in the sealing of records clinic there, as well as our resource clinic there, which we're really proud of that.
Which leads me to my next question. You just teed me up so well. Opportunity Port. You've mentioned the March program, you mentioned self-help, but we also have a great program that you are a part of, Opportunity Port. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Opportunity Port is an online program that was started by City Council, quite frankly, with our assistance, that you can get online and apply for record sealing. And then that program diverts you to people that will assist you in completing that application and then coming down to court and having your record sealed.
So as we're thinking about, moving online for some of this work that has traditionally been, work that's been done in person, technological advances continue to move the court towards more efficient operation. Can you discuss what, if any, negative implications have arisen as a result of utilizing more technology?
None.
Okay.
We're now doing our arraignments, which is a huge safety issue, virtually over the network. And then we are also, we will do virtual hearings at the court now, and we're reducing our need in our finances with regards to court reporters because we have recording systems. If anything, the pandemic has done is to help the court in moving forward a lot quicker than we thought on technology.
So the court continues to advance residential programming options. Can you provide any updates on the outcomes of utilizing residential programming versus incarceration, and how that has, if at all, affected rates of recidivism?
Well, I think one of our biggest issues is helping people to maintain their jobs, which is why the work release program is so good, because you can maintain your working hours and still, because unfortunately or fortunately, there are some sentences that are mandatory and that are law and that we have no choice on. And so in those cases, we can allow work release. We can also, I always tell people, young people that have, a theft charge or an underage drinking, we do a lot with community service. Young people don't like that necessarily, but usually when they come back, they're grateful for the opportunity, and so is the city.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask the same question with every department, just about what are the most important outcomes as it relates to the work that you all are doing around racial equity. And it's with the caveat that I know that there are a host of factors, some that are mitigating, that go into what the final decision is going to be for whoever might be in front of that judge. So that might not be the right way for you to respond to the question, maybe perhaps just from an employee perspective or programming perspective.
Well, and this is really exciting for us because the court has never done this before. But we are doing a court-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion training for the court staff, from the judges all the way down to the mail clerk. And this is going to be a 3-year program.
Okay.
It's a very intense program, and I think people are really opening their eyes and learning new things that they haven't known before. Yeah. That's an important thing that we needed to do, and we're doing it, and we're very proud of that.
It's great news, Judge. Thank you. That's all I have. We will now move on to our Clerk of Courts, Clerk Tyack. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Councilmember Favor and staff. Can you hear me? Great. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. My name is Lori Tyack, and I'm the Franklin County Municipal Clerk of Court. I appreciate the opportunity to present our proposed 2023 operating budget and to highlight some of our challenges and accomplishments over the past year. First, I would like to say thank you. Closer. Say thank you to my staff. Can you hear me now? I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to present our proposed 2023 operating budget and to highlight some of our challenges and accomplishments over the past year. First, I would like to say thank you to my staff for their commitment to service. I'm proud of my staff for their adaptive efforts in maintaining operations while dealing with short staffing, legislative changes, and increased case filings. Here with me today, I have Marilyn Stevens, my Executive Director of Public Relations, and Tate Wooding, soon to be my Director of Public Relations. Our mission is to accurately maintain and safeguard court records, collect and disperse public funds while promoting equal access, fairness, and transparency. Our vision is to provide access through competent customer service, communication, and community outreach. Our value statement reflects what we stand for, a commitment to the core values of respect, integrity, justice, and compassion for all that we serve. Our strategic priorities for 2023 will focus on the research and integration of new and available technologies, provide training and updates for staff, and support health and safety measures within the office. The Franklin County Municipal Court is unique because it has both countywide and citywide jurisdiction. Many years ago, the City of Columbus annexed land in Delaware and Fairfield, extending the court's jurisdiction into those counties. The clerk's office processes traffic citations and criminal complaints for 8 townships, 21 law enforcement agencies, and all criminal traffic cases from 19 mayor's courts. In addition, the clerk's office accepts civil case filings up to $15,000 in damages and small claims court cases valued at $6,000 and less. Programs such as rent escrow and trusteeships provide opportunities for members of the public, such as landlord and tenant issues. Trusteeships are available in lieu of bankruptcy to resolve credit matters. Funds are collected by order of the court and dispersed in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, municipal and county ordinances, and local court rules. Audits are performed annually by an independent accounting firm. Annual reports detailing the daily operations, financial statements, and caseload of the clerk's office are filed with the Auditor of State and made available online and in print on our website for public view. The Traffic Violations Bureau initiates and processes traffic, criminal, and environmental citations. Just last month, they began accepting electronic citations submitted by the Columbus Division of Police. The clerk's office also receives electronic citations from the Ohio Highway Patrol. We plan to support all law enforcement agencies operating in our jurisdiction with the implementation of this program. Software for this program is provided free by the Ohio Department of Public Safety. The Criminal Traffic Division has had a very busy year. I'm pleased to report that criminal traffic filings are now being accepted through our online electronic filing system. Prosecutors, public defenders, and private attorneys routinely file documents online. Law enforcement may also electronically file warrants issued. So far this year, we've received more than 5,500 electronic documents, including 600 applications for record sealings. In addition to their daily responsibilities, the criminal traffic staff participated in community events outside the office. They included on-site support for the record sealing clinic at the Milo Grogan Center, online record sealing assistance for a program sponsored by the Franklin County Self-Help Resource Center, and on-site support for several law enforcement initiatives. I think it's important to note that no additional public funds outside our general fund budget were used to participate in these community events. Criminal traffic, accounting finance, and the Office of Information Services have been working cooperatively with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office to prepare a space for clerking services in the new jail. On-site services will be provided by criminal traffic and accounting finance staff for 2 shifts or 16 hours per day to assist law enforcement with arrests and bond outs. We look forward to continuing to work with the Franklin County Sheriff's Office on this initiative. The Courtroom Service Group is responsible for the timely updating of court records. Staff works to schedule specialized docket and regular docket programs with the court, the City Attorney's Office, court probation, and release documents for the Franklin County Sheriff's Office and jail personnel. Suspensions, insurance coverage, points, reinstatement documents, and several other license-related issues are reported daily to the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles. In 2022, approximately 61,000 records were reported electronically, which was a decrease of 3.2% from 2021. According to the Ohio Revised Code, the clerk's office is responsible for collecting debt owed the court. Judgments or orders of the court which are not timely paid are referred to one of 3 collection agencies contracted by the clerk's office. As of November 30th this year, the total amount referred was a little over $2.1 million, which was a decrease of 27% as compared to 2021. The total amount collected by the agencies was $903,480 for the same time period. This is a decrease of 40% from 2021. This decrease is a result of less traffic citations being issued, suspension of fines and costs, and extensions of time granted for payments. The clerk's office also sends to collections unpaid bond on cases where the defendant fails to appear. A total of $42,000 was collected from citizens who paid bond deposits for the release of a defendant and that the defendant did not appear in court. During 2022, some of our challenges included assuming additional responsibilities from the court for small claims case processes, an increase of civil case filings, and a loss of 30% of our staff. In August, the Civil Division of the Clerk's Office assumed the responsibility of issuing new and subsequent summons service for all small claims cases. The number of summonses issued on small claims cases was a little over 1,200 since August of 2022 when we first began. This change was a result of the court's restructuring of their small claims division, which became effective June 1st. A new document format was also created and implemented for summons for contracts, small claims cases, and revivers for all civil cases, which improved readability. Additionally, the Civil Division responded to 3 administrative orders, the first of which rejected any certified mail returns notating COVID-19 or C-19 on the signature line, and the second required a printed name, signature, and confirmation of the address for successful return certified mail. Unfortunately, the number of successfully certified mail returns dwindled down to approximately 20%. The third administrative order stayed the second administrative order, and now the clerk and the court are currently working together to add a new commercial carrier service option to improve service and accountability of service. Projections indicate that approximately 3,000 evictions will be filed by the end of 2022, which is an increase of 32% over 2021. Each eviction case requires 2 forms of service be sent for each party, whether ordinary mail and bailiff service, ordinary mail and certified mail, or ordinary mail and process servers, and many cases have multiple defendants. These issues combined have caused significant processing delays in civil cases. As a result, I've authorized comp time and overtime to help us overcome the backlog. The Accounting Finance Division of the Clerk's Office has now joined in the e-filing process. New civil cases and subsequent filings, some of which require filing fees, are now being accepted daily. To date, more than 6,400 case filings have been processed. Of those filings, Accounting Finance processed 2,500 filings with filing fees. The amount collected since March of 2022, or when the clerk's office first began accepting civil e-filings with filing fees, is a little over $168,000. Our accounting finance staff and project coordinator have been working with Claire Vista to create and implement a payment process for the collection of bond, fines, and costs using our live agent kiosks. The kiosks, which were originally purchased to provide services during COVID, have been repurposed and will be installed in the new public area and intake at the new jail in January 2023. I'm very pleased to announce this project is nearing completion. Testing has been successful, and other courts and clerks have also expressed an interest. A few weeks ago, we provided an in-person demonstration for the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas clerk and her staff. They seemed very impressed with the new technology, and at the end of the demonstration, they looked at one another and said, "Why didn't we think of this?" The Auditing, Internal Controls, and Imaging Division have been hard at work auditing dockets, case files, banking processes, and scanning in images. So far this year, they verified funds for the Ohio Pooled Collateral System and completed the biannual Public Unit Funds Attestation Security Audit. They ensure that all 4 bank accounts are reconciled on time per the Ohio Revised Code requirements, and they perform daily deposit verification for all funds transferred from our office to the Huntington National Bank. This adds a second layer of security and separation of financial duties within our office. Imaging staff scanned 64,000 cases for a total of 1.7 million pages, which is amazing. The Office of Information Services provides support for clerk email database, software application, and other technology services. A few of their accomplishments included upgrading all clerk desktops to Microsoft Office 365. They launched a new law enforcement e-filing portal. They worked with the Daily Reporter newspaper to create a custom secure access profile so that they could work remotely with electronic case files. And they customized the e-subpoena program to be compatible with the Ohio State University Department of Public Safety's new internal system for delivery of Ohio State University police e-subpoenas. And now for the budget. The clerk's office received its full 2023 budget request of $15,060,157. The overall budget is 13.2% higher than 2022 due to an increase of personnel and benefits. Excuse me. $14 million was designated for personnel, about 172. Excuse me. $140,834 for materials and supplies, and $886,580 for services such as postage and fleet. The clerk's office is taking a 1% vacancy credit and is expected to save $141,724 in personnel. The clerk's office computer fund request includes $749,601 for 5 personnel, $81,000 for materials and supplies, and $919,046 for professional services and contracts, for a total of $1.7 million. This fund is supported through the collection of court costs according to state statute and is approved by our administrative judge annually. We also filed 2 expansion requests as part of our budget. One was to move our IT staff to the general fund from the computer fund, and the second was a salary increase to attract and retain qualified staff and to remain competitive in the marketplace. I want to say thank you, Councilmember Favor, for your support this last year, and to your staff, to Mayor Ginther, Director Kathy Owens and staff, and the other members of City Council for their support during this past year. I would be pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Clerk Hayek, for that presentation. So it appears as though, well, we do know that case filings over the past 2 years or so have been down, but it appears as though all the filings are up except for traffic. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's correct.
So what are those court costs used for?
$10 of all court costs collected goes towards the computer fund. $3 goes towards the court's computer fund. Other court costs are set by statute. They might go to Highway Patrol or some of the state funds, to our local municipalities, and to our court.
Has the clerk transitioned? You did highlight some of the specific dockets that have transitioned into the digital world, but has the clerk transitioned to a paperless working environment entirely?
No, we have not. We are still working on that, and we've been working with the court to explore how we can work together to create that environment.
Is that a part of the digital continuity plan, which continues to be a strategic priority for you year after year?
So the digital continuity plan is a plan that was put in place by the Ohio Supreme Court, encouraging all of us to look forward to the new types of records that may be created in the future, and to be able to transfer the current digital records into whatever format those might be in the future.
Do you have a goal for transitioning to a complete paperless society, or is that a lofty dream?
We do have a dream and a goal to move towards a paperless environment, and I have been working with the staff to make sure that by the time our new building is built in 5 to 7 years, we will not need paper any longer in the court system.
You also highlighted the kiosk, and as we continue to navigate the COVID-19 world, flu incidents are up. And so the kiosks were a great example of how we can continue to be productive while also creating a safe environment for folks to process whatever they need to process. So the kiosks that we have right now, 6 of them.
We actually have 10 of them. 5 of them have keyboards with a ball mouse that anyone can type in. The others just have the ability to type on the screen. So we have 10 of them.
Will they all be relocated to the new jail, or will some still stay at the courthouse to be utilized by
One will
individuals?
continue to be used at the courthouse for payments down in the Traffic Violations Division. 2 of them will go to the new jail, and we're hoping to contact the BMV registrars, deputy registrars in the Franklin County area to see if we could put a few out there so people would be able to conduct all their business in one place.
And last but certainly not least is the question I'm going to continue to ask around the historical inequities as it relates to remedying and providing a race-neutral society as much as possible and bringing that equitable work into the workplace. If you could highlight anything that you all are
You know, I
looking
think
forward
that
to.
it's important to recognize that our communities have different needs. Different communities may be struggling more with record sealing, license reinstatement, driver's license issues of different kinds, evictions, and we continue to work on programs that will benefit all of those in our jurisdiction. A lot of them do focus on underprivileged women with children. I know a few years ago, before the pandemic set in, we removed all but 3 years' worth of history from our online records. Those records are still available if you come down to our office, but that was from a suggestion from the Women's Commission that the City of Columbus actually sponsored. We've also promoted and held safe surrender programs where those with warrants, outstanding warrants, could come in for favorable consideration to have those warrants set aside. We've been continuing to participate in the record sealing initiatives, which a lot of people need that help. These are only a few things that we've done since I've been in office, but I anticipate that more will come to light that we can do to help those who are less fortunate and also to help us identify and recognize the needs in certain communities.
And that work has been taken outside of the courthouse as well, that some of those record sealing initiatives have been held in the community, like the King Arts Complex and things like that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, at least in 3 or 4 different locations.
Wonderful. Thank you, Clerk. That's all
Thank
the
you.
questions I have. We will now move on to the Housing Committee with a presentation by Deputy Director of Development, Hannah Jones. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Favor, for the opportunity to present the Department of Development's 2023 operating budget for the Division of Housing. Is it going to go? Our general fund proposal totals $29 million for all divisions within our department. Our 2023 budget reflects our focus on the mayor's priorities of affordable housing, small business, and entrepreneurship. Our operating budget is unique in that our programming is funded not just by the general fund, but by 12 different sources totaling $46 million. We use our $29 million in operating support to provide the staffing and administrative support needed to activate $173 million, or 5 times our budget, in service provision for Columbus residents. By funding the department's general fund budget, the city's resources can have a compounded impact, mobilizing significant resources to address community needs. Our proposed 2023 budget for housing and human services totals $18.8 million. This includes $10 million for human services, which we'll focus on in the next presentation, $5.4 million to the Community Shelter Board, $2.1 million for the Affordable Housing Trust, $425,000 to support the implementation of our affordable housing strategy, and $125,000 for homeowner counseling services. One of the cornerstones of economic well-being is housing stability. Mayor Ginther's goal is that no resident pays more than 30% of their monthly income to live in the neighborhood of their choice. In November, Columbus voters reiterated the importance of this priority by approving $200 million in bond funding to support affordable housing. We hope to invest these funds in 4 priority areas: $80 million for the construction of affordable rental units, $50 million for affordable homeownership, $40 million to preserve existing housing affordability, and $30 million to be focused on programs and permanent supportive housing for individuals and families who are experiencing homelessness. This past summer, we began implementation of our housing strategy. The strategy focuses funding and resources in 3 areas: invest, preserve, and include. First, we plan to invest in housing that the market won't bring to bear. Second, we plan to preserve existing housing affordability to minimize displacement in growing and flourishing neighborhoods. Lastly, we want to include everyone by addressing racial and economic disparities by fostering economically diverse neighborhoods. This past year, I'd like to mention 3 important strategic accomplishments that have been made towards these goals. In the area of invest, as we discussed, we got the voter approval on the $200 million. The Housing Division has awarded $17.2 million in loans and grants for homeowner services and housing finance in order to preserve and expand housing opportunities. And in an effort to include more of our residents in the communities throughout our neighborhoods, we have updated the city's community reinvestment area policy to ensure that we are either going wider or deeper in providing affordable options and market rate projects. And that concludes for the housing section. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. If we could go back to the slide, one more. Yeah, I think for folks at home that are watching, they might be slightly confused if we have been very loud at the city about the need to roll out a housing strategy to address our housing crisis, and then a carve-out specifically around our affordable housing crisis, and then looking at the budget and seeing, well, there's only $18 million there for housing. Can you once again just reiterate how the housing is actually funded?
Sure. So the majority of the general operating fund, as we said, goes to the staffing costs, but the staff are the ones who are actually expending the federal dollars and the bond dollars. So our general operating support goes to support our program managers who are helping to work with our low-income housing tax credit providers, our community development partners, our homeowner counselors, to expend federal funds. So we get home funds, which come from HUD. We also sometimes utilize CDBG. We also get lead, which helps with lead remediation. So the majority of our funding that is actually going out into programs is coming either through the federal government or when we have access to capital bonds. As you can see, the majority of the funding is bond funding that goes into projects.
Have we ever in the past utilized general fund dollars to support the housing department?
For staff or for programs?
For programs.
I would want to go back and get you a for sure answer. It definitely would not be to a level that compares to our other funds.
Can you talk about the timeline for next steps with regard to the strategic housing plan release? You laid out very eloquently the goals of building, investing, preserving, and including as it relates to the strategy. So talk about the timeline and then what the action steps will be for the implementation.
Sure. Oh, I was hoping to have minutes. So in 2023, it's really going to be focused on how we are looking to deploy the capital allocation once it is made available to us. So it is a lot of strategic planning and then beginning to get those community resources out into the projects and start to bring units online. I think the second really large component is the regional component and really starting to come alongside our neighboring jurisdictions to build a regional approach and collaboration with regard to how we handle housing as a region.
So, having chaired this committee for the last 3 or 4 years, one of the things that we hear a lot is that there's just no housing available. So what is our plan to increase the amount of housing that's coming online every year?
So it is first and foremost to invest the funding that has been made available through the bond campaign. But we also recognize that we need to preserve the housing that exists. So that is where we start to bring in stuff like our homeowner services, home repair programs. How do we stabilize households that are already in housing that they can afford? So, and then also looking for opportunities to strategically acquire land and engage in partnerships where we can build more product. But it is also important to emphasize that in order to deal with the crisis, that we need to ensure that we are providing housing options across the spectrum. So it is also about reducing processing, focusing on our own regulatory environment that may hinder the timing of projects coming online, and that is another priority for 2023, to really look at our regulatory environment as well.
So in 2019, we passed at that time what was a historic package that was designated specifically for affordable housing to the tune of $50 million. How many units were we able to build with those bond dollars?
Yes, we brought about 1,324 units online.
I'm sorry, what was the number?
1,324.
And keeping in mind that was during the pandemic
Yes.
period.
Yes.
And that was over the span of 3 years?
Yes. So we started funding in 2020 through this year, all the way up until the last council meeting that we have next week. We are awarding the last projects for that. So some are leasing up as we speak, and some are finalizing construction right now.
So given that voters just approved $200 million
Yes.
in November,
Yes.
Do we, number one, know how many units we anticipate to see from that bond package? And will it take 3 years again to spend $50 million? For lack of.
So I would not anticipate that it would take 3 years again to spend $50 million, because the voters had such a high confidence in us and the importance of this issue. Having access to more funding will allow us to be able to fund projects in a single year versus over multiple years. So that is a very exciting development that should allow us to spend it faster. A lot of the timing is a bit unknown because we are moving into a new capital budget season. So really, as we work with the Auditor's Office and Finance to identify timing, ability of the city to borrow, that will really help us determine how quickly we can get the funding out and over what number of years.
So, given the reality, I believe the president just tweeted either today or sometime this week about the historic nature of Intel coming to the region and the dollars that are coming into our community to support housing. Do we have an idea of how we are going to prioritize the types of development that we need in the community, and how we're going to attract different types of developers to the city of Columbus to offer different types of products? Yeah,
I think that is a multi-tiered approach. I will bang the drum on regional over and over again, because just like we attract businesses, attracting partners on the housing side and those who want to work with us is going to require everybody to come to the table to determine what the needs are for their community and how each jurisdiction can best support that. I believe that we are going to continue to look at opportunities to drive our resources to where we can leverage the most output. So with the 50 million, we leveraged 300 million in private investment. So for us, we will continue to look at the opportunity with our low-income housing tax credits. They give us an opportunity to bring a lot of units online at once. However, we also understand the need to support some of our smaller developers, both from an equity standpoint, but also a lot of those smaller infill projects bring valuable units online in a smaller time. So it's kind of going to be a collective effort with everybody to understand what is needed, because it really is product across the board. The lucky part is that we are having this conversation earlier than a lot of our other partners, and so we can learn a lot, but it also will require moving quickly.
And then in thinking about the successful passage of the new Community Reinvestment Area Guidelines, or CRA, or the policy that seeks to incentivize affordable development in our community this past July, really looking to target lower income residents and requiring an increase in the percentage of affordable units. What's next for the CRA policy?
So I think there has to be a little bit of an opportunity to learn. When we did the first policy in 2018, we then, by the tail end of the time to review the 3 years, had entered into a pandemic. And so we have had a lot of changes in construction, a lot of changes in what financing a deal looks like. So I think first and foremost, with the new policy in place, we want to see what impact it has on development. Do we truly get the units that we were hoping to? Or do we see a lot of people looking at buyout options? Did we go too low in AMI? Could we go lower? Could we go wider? So I think at the moment it is to learn. And then also to take those learnings and understand, as our city grows, are there opportunities to use this tool more strategically in areas that it hasn't already existed in?
So in the city of Columbus, there is absolutely a need for more permanent supportive housing. And for folks that are watching, our new CRA policy is gone now historically lower at targeting folks that fall within that 60% of the area median income range. But truly, we're seeing a great need for the folks that are in that deeply affordable category, which would be 0 to 30%
Yes.
of the area median income. What's the division's plan in 2023 to add more of these units to our community?
Yeah. So I think one of the most significant things with the 200 million is a specific carve out that is focused on options for either unsheltered individuals or specifically for permanent supportive housing. So rather than trying to compete for necessarily the same funding as our other LIHTC partners, we're saying that this goal and these units are important enough that we need to identify $30 million that is really going to that focus. We are still in the very early phases of figuring out what that looks like in implementation, but I do think it is significant that we are making a commitment to that type of housing specifically and the support services it provides to our most vulnerable residents.
And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but for your department, what are the most important outcomes as it relates to the work you do and racial equity?
Sure. I think for us, as you led with, it is really understanding and then being informed by the history and the policies and regulations that have gotten us as a community to where we are today. It's then removing those barriers, changing those policies so that we can increase access. Within our department, that falls across all of the divisions. In our support of the shelter system, we recognize that people served in the shelter are disproportionately African American. It's running around 63% right now. So to your point, serving unsheltered individuals, looking at permanent supportive housing, that is a center for us. When we did our small business grants, $6.3 million was awarded to 945 businesses. 87% of those were minority-owned, 75% located in low and moderate income census tracts. Our Elevate work, which we'll touch on in human services, is informed by the social determinants of health and how they impact the populations that we're trying to reach. And then the include pillar of the housing strategy is really about trying to identify and call out those challenges and look at ways that we can reverse them or mitigate them.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to our last committee, which is the Health and Human Services Committee. That committee includes not just our Columbus Public Health Department, but also the Department of Development, which does provide some human services support for the city of Columbus. So Deputy Director Jones, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Yep. Just pull it right back up. It's okay. Cool. All righty. As I mentioned earlier, our operating budget is unique. And as we talked about, we really use a very finite operating budget in order to leverage resources. And that is true with human services as well. Our proposed 2023 budget for homelessness and human services totals $15.4 million. As we discussed, that's $10 million for human services, and then our $5.4 million in operating support for the Community Shelter Board. Oh, this is the housing one, sorry. There we go. Supporting 9 of the 21 aspirational raise for Mayor Ginther's Opportunity Rising agenda, we are doubling our annual allocation for human services, which has traditionally been $5 million to $10 million a year. Providing services to those most in need has always been a priority, and this funding will continue to support agencies that offer services including workforce development, financial life skills, substance abuse recovery, immigrant and refugee services, and food pantries. Earlier this year, we awarded $5 million in operational support to 48 agencies working in the areas of unsheltered homelessness, infant vitality, and housing stability for our new Americans and refugees. The department recently completed a second competitive grant process and will be awarding an additional $5 million focused on all 9 rays. The expansion in our 2023 budget will allow the department to provide sustained operational support to both groups of successful grant recipients through the next year. The Elevate grant program provides funding for 3 years, and the department would anticipate that we would be releasing a new RFP in 2025. While not a part of our general fund operating budget, and not necessarily captured in the human services section, I do want to take a moment to call out our rental assistance program and the funding that it has played as a critical role in our work within the department to stabilize families since COVID has impacted our community. In the past 2 years, the City of Columbus has received and obligated approximately $61.3 million of federal emergency rental assistance and has served over 11,000 households with that funding. And this concludes my remarks for this committee. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. If we don't have to go back actually physically through the PowerPoint, but discussing the Elevate 1.0.
Yes.
If we could talk about what the 2.0 process looks like and how funds are going to be awarded to nonprofits.
Sure. So Elevate, the first Elevate grant round occurred in June of this year, and I'm going to go back just a little bit on the raise. And when we did the first round, we focused on 3 priorities, which was unsheltered homelessness, infant vitality, and housing stability for immigrants and refugees. So that was $5 million that was awarded in June. We recently just finished our second round of grants, and organizations were able to apply under all 9 rays, which are captured here. And those grant recipients will come before you for legislation after the 2023 budget passes. So the goal here is that we are providing operational support to a series of providers that we know are working in the space of racial equity and social determinants of health. Our goal would be to fund these organizations for 3 years, focused on operational support and capacity building. And I emphasize that because traditionally, city funding has been very programmatic, very specific, but we recognize that there's still a lot of challenges that our providers are having. So once we have this second cohort in place, we would anticipate, hopefully, if we continue to get the expansion, that they would be funded through 2025. So we would be undertaking a new RFP process for a new round of grantees in 2024, 2025.
So many have advocated for this increase in human services funding included in the 2023 budget. Does development envision maintaining this funding level for human services after this Elevate 1.0 and 2.0 process?
Yes, we plan to continue to advocate for it as an expansion request.
We have seen the impacts of COVID are especially prevalent within our human services sector. Do you believe 10 million is enough, or is there a way to fully assess the scope of needs in our community?
I think that can sometimes be very much a moving target. And I think that the needs always change. So I think that one of the things that's valuable about having housing interact with human services and interact with homelessness is it is often that we are serving so many of the same populations. So I don't know that it is always necessarily that we need just more money, but how efficient we are being, and are we really getting to the heart of what the needs of our community are. So our human services team works very closely with our other philanthropic partners as well as the human services chambers. So I think we're always actively asking that question. I don't know that I have a for sure answer for you.
Yeah. So there were quite a few lessons that were learned from winter 2021, how to better support our residents that are unhoused, especially in extreme weather months. Moving forward, what is our plan for ensuring that our unhoused individuals are protected in extreme weather?
Sure. First and foremost, the Community Shelter Board always institutes a winter overflow policy when it hits 32 degrees, which means that no matter the capacity, there is always room and a bed for an individual who wants to get out of the weather. However, we understand that for some individuals, the shelter may not make the most sense or a place that they are comfortable. So the department, in collaboration and really led by City Council, has been working with the Community Shelter Board to identify a plan for this winter, which is to partner with agencies who are on the ground and working with our unsheltered residents to look at providing warming center access throughout the city, but then also piloting the idea of a 24-hour warming center. And really what we're trying to do is look at how do we find a safe space for individuals without necessarily creating a number of additional shelters. So we have a lot of community partners who are very passionate about this. City Council has identified resources that we have legislated to focus on working with Community Development for All People, the Community Shelter Board, and Friends of the Homeless to stand up those centers this winter. And hopefully we can learn and then even build on our successes to have a more robust plan for the winter of 2023.
Just this past Monday, we had City Council passed funding, surge funding, I believe it's called, for
Yes.
CSB. What will the increase in funding to CSB mean for homeless prevention and mitigation in our city?
So the surge funding that was awarded is focused on the operations of the shelters. So I don't know that it does much for mitigation and prevention, but what it does is really try and focus on the increased capacity and needs of our shelter providers. I think our homeless residents faced a lot of the worst stressors on them. And as a result, we saw a lot of stress on our providers and a need for additional access to resources, be it mental health, be it stipends. As our economy continues to change, how do we retain very valuable employees in a environment and a work that is very stressful? So I don't know that it mitigates or prevents, but our goal is to ensure that we are adequately serving our residents, staffing our shelters, and giving our homelessness shelter providers the resources they need in order to best serve everyone.
So we know that COVID ERA dollars are set to expire in the next year or so, maybe a little bit longer. But what is the plan to create a permanent funding stream that is similar to the level of support that we've been able to provide over the last 2 years?
So I don't know that we will ever get to the level we've had over the last few years. $61 million is a lot. But what I would say that I hope has happened with ERA is that it has gotten us to a place where we can identify a funding source and revenue stream where we are able to prevent and mitigate and stabilize families who are not facing nearly the level of arrears that they did during the pandemic. We are currently in conversations and trying to determine next steps. Our ERA manager is very passionate about ensuring that the work we've done is sustainable. So I would say that we are still investigating the opportunities and determining what a budget and a source looks like.
And, I'll say that is definitely top of mind for me personally, regardless of the fact that those ERA dollars or ARPA funding, they go away. Does it mean that the day-to-day experience of individuals who have been greatly impacted by COVID-19 go away? And so cities all across the country will have to grapple with how do we supplement that support that we have been able to provide our residents. My last question also lends itself to the COVID-19 discussion. And the reality is that it did disproportionately affect people of color, older adults, the disabled, and low-income wage earners. How was race equity brought into the work of human services?
Sure. So first and foremost, I think in human services especially, it's true that it is informed by the people with lived experience. So there is a desire, especially on the homelessness side, to engage with people who are on the land or who have experience on the land. In the human services sector, it is always critical, especially with the social determinants of health, to understand the impact that the work is having, who the organizations are serving. So we're always trying to be intentional that we're really focusing in on organizations that are working with the populations or in the neighborhoods and communities that are going to get to those who have been disproportionately impacted.
Thank you, Deputy Director. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
And we will now move on to our final presentation for the evening that will be provided by our Columbus Public Health Department, Assistant Health Commissioner Anita Clark. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Councilmember Favor, and thank you for the opportunity for us to highlight Columbus Public Health's proposed 2023 budget of $42,261,618, which will help us protect the health and safety of our community and the residents we serve. As part of the budget, just under $32 million has been allocated for personnel costs to include 330 full-time and 18 part-time staff. We are proud that our diverse workforce exceeds the community average based on the U.S. Census. For example, in 2022, Hispanic and Latino persons accounted for 4.6% of Columbus Public Health's employees compared to 1.5% in the community. Additionally, in 2022, Black and African American employees made up 27% of our workforce compared to 11% in the community. We are excited to continue to hire diverse staff who will support the unique needs of our community. Columbus Public Health played a lead role in protecting the health and safety of our residents during COVID-19 pandemic. Mpox, which is the new name now for monkeypox, and also Ebola monitoring, and now we're dealing with the measles outbreak. While our budget is only 1.43% increase from 2022, doesn't seem significant, we've been fortunate to have a supplement of our operating budget with much-needed state and federal grant monies. We were just awarded a $9 million workforce development grant from the CDC. That'll be coming up soon in legislation in January. And we're really excited about this because this is really going to help us with our recruitment and our retention of our diverse staff that's needed for our diverse community. So we're very, very excited about that. Now that spans over the next 5 years. So it's about a little over $2 million for each year. The largest staffing increase was proposed in our Population Health Division, with an increase from 32 full-time to 41 full-time employees. This division houses our epidemiology program, emergency response, infectious disease investigation, outbreak response, and the strategic nursing team. All those individuals that have been working in our pandemic and now with Ebola and with measles and with Mpox. We've seen so many things over the course of the last 3 years with infectious diseases, and we've got to have the staffing to do the work to keep our health in our community. Our continued investigation of current disease outbreaks will help us to support the community, as I said, and then we anticipate the COVID-19 funding to be reduced with our grant programming. I think I've heard that across the board tonight. We know that the COVID funding is going to be reduced, so we need to start anticipating when that happens. Additionally, we are excited to be part of the city's anti-violence work. That is such a passion for me, and I'm fortunate enough to help lead that programming with our neighborhood social services. We have budgeted just over $5 million for 43 full-time employees on our current team. That we really want to link residents to trauma support and resources to build a stronger, safer, and more resilient community. We are also eager to continue a contract with a small minority vendor to provide culturally sensitive counseling for 40 community members and group counseling for families after a violent loss. As we work to build stronger and more resilient communities, we know that hurt people hurt people. This effort is yet another small way that we will expand and continue to serve the unique needs of our residents. Likewise, our neighborhood social service team is building a trauma-informed community through our work with the Columbus Care Coalition, Voice, Violence Intervention, neighborhood social workers, and the Dispatch 911 Alternative Response, which places trained social workers with dispatchers in triage calls to address mental health issues. Since the Alternative Response pilot program began in June of 2021 through November of this year, over 2,500 events were triaged by the RRU, with almost a third of those events not requiring a police response. In 2022, our team grew to a second shift, which allows us to provide social workers in the dispatch center Monday through Friday from 8:30 to midnight. And we started that on October 31st, Halloween night, on a Monday night. And it's been much needed, and we'll continue that in 2023. The budget also includes an increase of $20,000 for us to purchase additional lock boxes, and I know that that's so valuable as we talk about common sense practices with guns. And we're hoping to provide even more gun lock boxes in 2023, and education to educate individuals on how to store it, and just, again, kind of a common sense, and educating them on making sure your gun is safe, away from your children, et cetera. That's very important. We're also working hard to build up our communities with a resiliency program. To that end, we will continue to build our One Block at a Time program, which we did in the Linden area, which really is a goal of bringing neighborhoods together and people together. This recently, when we had our event, we had a neighbor tell us that, you drive down Cleveland Avenue, and if you hear the gunshots on the left, that's my neighborhood. And so he had been there for 5 years and didn't have one neighbor he knew. So that was just a wonderful thing to be able to go in and bridge people together. Additionally, this summer, we onboarded Columbus Public Health social workers onto the mobile crisis response team. And I have to say, it's been a dynamic relationship with our Columbus Police, and they're doing some amazing work together, and that started in midsummer, and that is with CPH social workers. We are honored to lead our city's efforts to address racism as a public health crisis. Our Center for Public Health Innovation is addressing the social determinants of health to achieve health equity. The budget includes almost $3 million to support the center, which is working to confront, address racism wherever and whenever we see it. Additionally, we have increased our budget by $57,000 for interpretation services to reduce barriers and provide the equitable care that best serves our clients, for a total of amount of just under $300,000 for that interpretation services. We're not extremely certain what the numbers will be, what the costs will be in 2023. I think we've seen a lot of after effect of the pandemic, and this year we used a lot of our mobile, it's called a MARTI system, interpretation system during our immunization exclusion week, and we're just continuously using those services, so we're going to have to gauge whether that's going to be enough for 2023. Our primary care services contract is budgeted just under $4.3 million to support critical needs such as testing and treatment for sexually transmitted infections like syphilis, women's health, wellness services, and immunizations. In 2023, a portion of the funding will be allocated to 6 federally qualified health centers. Furthermore, our proposed 2023 budget also allows continued provision of public health services that are mandated, as well as priority programs that the Board of Health deems essential to meet Ohio public health standards. Quality public health professionals and services are needed now more than ever before. We are grateful that this budget allows us to achieve our highest calling to protect the health, well-being, and safety of the community and residents we serve. The city's investment ensures that equitable and quality public health care and protection are available to all residents. Columbus Public Health will continue to operate with high efficiency and effectiveness to serve the health and safety needs of our entire community in these challenging times. As always, we appreciate the support and partnership of Columbus City Council through this process and all year long as we continue to work on behalf of Columbus residents. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for your presentation this evening. This past Monday as well, we did pass successfully the common sense gun legislation, and you acknowledge that gun violence is a public health crisis as well in our community. So you highlighted the work around your anti-violence efforts and I believe the Mobile Crisis Center. Is there any other work that you want to highlight that you think might coincide with the new legislation that is attempting to address this crisis in our community?
We really are doing a lot of trauma work in our community, and I had mentioned that hurt people.
Yeah.
And I think that resilience work is important. We are working with a faith-based community partner, More Life, to provide some resiliency building in the community with the faith-based community. And I think that we understand that it takes all of us. It's not a police responsibility. It's not Columbus Public Health's total responsibility. It's our community, it's city council, it's everybody working together. But we're really in there working with resiliency and building that in our community. And then also doing a lot of training, a lot of cultural sensitivity training so that we understand how to deal with de-escalation in the community and understand our diverse population. I think that's very important for us to have a handle on that.
Earlier this year, we saw an attack on reproductive health care across the country, and although not specifically highlighted in your budget, some residents may not know that the Columbus Public Health Department does provide comprehensive reproductive health care. Could you talk a little bit about what the services that you all provide?
Sure. We have two programs. We have I'm sorry about the mic. It kind of
okay.
keeps going in and out. We have our Women's Health Services, which is located on our first floor at 240 Parsons Avenue, as well as a mobile unit that goes out to different events as well and provides women's reproductive services. We also opened up a sexual health and wellness center. It's a little bit different than our sexual health clinic. When the pandemic hit in 2020, we closed that clinic because we diverted our clients to working on, or our employees to work on COVID. But we also provide reproductive care in that clinic as well.
I appreciate that response. I've been asking these questions around equity and specifically around racial equity, thinking about this attack on reproductive health care. You can't help but acknowledge those historic inequities that exist in healthcare in general, and ensuring that all residents have access to affordable and good health care is incredibly important to continue to uplift during these challenging times. But while we're here in the realm of equity, you talked a little bit about the Center for Public Health Innovation. How do you think the center has helped to advance the work of equity in our community so far?
I think that we're really taking a deep dive into our culturally sensitive verbiage and how we work with our community. We have community engagement. We have a policy section under the Center for Public Health Innovation, a capacity building, and we're really working with contractors to address those barriers of health disparity. And I'm thinking of some of the vendors that we're currently working with includes the Somali Community Association, the Bhutanese Community of Central Ohio, Community Development for All People. And I had mentioned earlier about working with a counselor that provides that violence care to individuals that need culturally sensitive counseling. Stephanie Starks is our contractor, and we're going to work with her in 2023 as well. But I think that we just gain that education, knowledge, training, and work with our providers in the community to be able to close that gap up on health equities.
I know that the pandemic is not over, but for the last few years, the Public Health Department's focus has really been centered on COVID-19. And we are so incredibly appreciative for the leadership of Dr. Roberts and the entire team over there at the Health Department. How do you see operations changing now that you all are starting to shift focus just a little bit, if you are, And if you could loop in the new, I can't call it a new kid on the block because measles has been around forever, but we do have an outbreak.
We do.
That we're navigating in our community. So perhaps talking about what that work looks like for you all now.
Right. I think since 2020, 2020, we knew the pandemic was here. Then we hit 2021 and we thought we were kind of getting over the hill. And then it kind of reared its ugly head again in the fall last year. And we really have been able to kind of downscale our COVID work, not completely. We're still, we still have our hands in that. We're hoping that we're not going to see an uptick again, but we're prepared if so. But what COVID has done is helped us understand how to attack other outbreaks. And, we've had, Mpox. We've had Ebola traveler monitoring too that we recently, and we are still doing as well. And then measles. Currently we have 63 confirmed cases. 59 of those cases are in our jurisdiction. And then what's alarming is that 60 of the cases are unvaccinated. And then 3 cases are partially vaccinated. And so how do we get the word out to our community how important it is for vaccination? And how can we address those barriers? What is the fear of the vaccine? How can we work with individuals in their community with how to talk about the education of an MMR and what it means, and really kind of ease their concerns about that vaccine.
Yeah, and that's why it's so incredibly important for council to continue to sound the alarm around equity. I know that it's been a priority for Mayor Ginther as well, but when you think about how we talk about certain things, like whether it's the pandemic or it's measles in general, and understanding that we cannot bring the same message to every community, that message will need to change depending upon who our audience is and the resources that we provide to support said community members is going to look different as well, depending upon how who we're speaking to.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And our Center for Public Health Innovation has done a great job on trying to figure out how to best message, and it's just like a lot, some folks aren't visual folks. Some people, auditory, that works. Different ways of how you explain a disease process and who they respect in the community, and bringing in individuals that have lived experience to talk about maybe having a child that's had measles and how that affected them. And then, what are the fears?
Thank you. That is all the questions that I have for
you're
you this
very welcome.
evening. I believe we did have one speaker, but I don't see anyone in chambers today. I will call her name for the record, Maria Ford. Again, thank you to all of our departments that have presented tonight and provided us with the details of their 2023 budgets. I'd also like to thank all of our directors and their staffs, as well as Legislative Research Office, Mark Carter, and the entire staff at CTV for their work to prepare for and host this hearing. I'd also like to thank my team, Sandeepti Jindal, and as well as Anissa Lieben for their work in preparing for tonight's hearing. I'm so proud of the work that our departments have accomplished this year. This also includes a $1.5 million investment to Legal Aid of Central Ohio to expand their program supporting tenants facing evictions, a comprehensive winter warming program to ensure our residents who are experiencing homelessness are safe and warm throughout the winter months, and to date, successfully distributing around a little over $10 million in ERA dollars. This year, we also passed, just this past Monday, Common Sense Gun Reform Legislative Package and a Reproductive Healthcare Package in the wake of Dobbs. Additionally, we continue to expand our racial equity work and the Casey Goodson CDL program. We hosted our inaugural Housing Town Hall, and continued our work to provide community education around Housing for All legislation, which was passed in 2021. But this work is far from being done. I look forward to continuing the work around affordable housing, reproductive health, and racial equity. Before I adjourn this meeting, I'd like to take a moment to wish all of our residents a safe, healthy, and happy holiday season. I know this has been a challenging year for many, but we will continue to do the work to implement a change for a brighter future. We wouldn't be the great city we are without each other and every one of you. So thank you for pushing forward, for advocating for things you believe in, and caring for one another along the way. This will now conclude this evening's hearing. Thank you again, everyone. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.